Welcome to Cooking with Gerry. Here I have the frying pan with the bottom layer with water, more water than normal because we're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to make ketchup without tomatoes. So it's not really ketchup, but I don't know what else to call it. It's going to be red because of the beetroot, and there's also carrot, which will give it that earthy flavor. And I also have one cabbage. All of these have been chopped up into fairly small pieces to make the cooking process a little bit quicker. And this water, just water, nothing else right now, has been on the fire for about 2 minutes, a low flame. So I'm just going to put all these ingredients into the frying pan, and these will cook for about 10 minutes, also longer than usual because we're going to have to blend everything to make a puree so that it's similar to ketchup but much healthier, especially than the store-bought ketchup. In the beginning, I think video 2, we made ketchup with tomato, carrot, apple, and pear. This time I want to make it without tomato. Tomato can be very acidic and cause problems with some people as far as digestion. And the store-bought ketchups also usually have a lot of sugar and other not so healthy ingredients. So this is going to be made up all only of food, no chemical stuff. We will put some salt, and I think also some salted butter and virgin olive oil for the cooking process, and then at the end I think we'll need some extra virgin olive oil. You can put vinegar. Every recipe I saw on the internet when I checked a month ago, every recipe had vinegar. But I don't want to eat vinegar, so I'm not going to add vinegar to this ketchup, which is not really ketchup. Maybe by the end of the video I'll come up with a better name for it. And this is a sweet red pepper, also going to go in, but after that first 10 minutes of cooking, because this doesn't need as long to cook as those 3 items. And then here, I don't know if you can see, there's some nuts, the soft nuts. I'm going to cover it because there are a few bugs with this outdoor kitchen. The soft nuts, which are pecans, pistachios, and cashews. Also walnuts, but I don't have walnuts. So there's 4 pecans, about 20 pistachios, about 10 cashews. They've all been washed, and they are going to go in at the same time as the sweet pepper. So this is going to be a process, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes, and I think I need to add a little bit more water, and we'll continue with this cooking process. Okay, part 2 of this cooking process for the ketchup. I let it cook for a little bit longer than the 10 minutes because there's more in the frying pan than I thought there would be, and because I also added another half a cup of water. So it's been almost 20 minutes. And now I'm going to add the sweet pepper that's in small pieces, and the nuts. I broke apart a little bit the pecans. These nuts will absorb some of the water as they cook for these next 5 or 10 minutes. It's important that we cook a little bit longer than normal. As we've been discussing, the longer you cook any food, the more damage you create with that cooking process. and the less your body will benefit from the food. But in this case it's different because we're making a sauce, a puree. So that's going to be a little bit longer. The nuts, what they'll do is they will add a bit of a creamy texture, but also very important to balance the blood sugar in your body. The nuts with the fiber, protein, and fat content, they will balance a little bit the sugars that are in all the vegetables. So they'll also add the creaminess. The red pepper, I think, will add a bit of zing to the ketchup, and the cabbage just adds a bit of lightness. So I think it'll be a really tasty combination. And because for myself I don't have a fridge, this has to be eaten within probably about a day. I'm going to show you after we're done making it how I'm going to eat it with my first meal. I have some leftovers from my breakfast, which I'll explain later. And also want to mention, please stay tuned because we have a new variety show that I'll put at the end of this video. So this is about 5-10 minutes and we'll come back. Final process for this ketchup without tomatoes. I'll show you what it looks like in the blender. And what I did, as I said, I let it cook for those final 10 minutes. I turned off the heat and then I let it cool for about 20 minutes so I wasn't putting really hot food into this blender. And I haven't added anything else, any oil or butter. I'm going to do that after. And a lot of the liquid was absorbed. There's barely any liquid, so I might need to add some oil to help with the blending, but I prefer not to, just because I don't want the oil to get onto the glass jar of the blender. I don't have hot water for cleaning. So I want to try and blend everything, and then in the bowl we'll add the butter, the salt, and the extra virgin olive oil. So here I'm just going to pulse, get things started. Coming along well. Shake it up a little bit. And I have this little plastic spatula that came with the blender. There's a bit of an empty pocket right now where the blade is. So this is going to be fairly thick, which is nice if you want to put this on your favorite item that you normally use ketchup. But also good as a dip for whatever you'd normally use. Many people like the potato chip or the pretzels or even raw vegetables, pita bread. Maybe one more time and it'll mix. Oh, I just heard the air come up. It's a good sign. Just mixing it a little bit to help out the blender. And here we go. So this is my first time with this kind of food combination. Looks really good. Smells good. Oh, not quite ready yet. this could be the last time. No. It's thick. Okay, for me that's enough. If you want yours to be even smoother, continue with that process. And with my spatula, let me move this out of the way. I am going to pour it into this bowl. And I'll clean up the glass jar of the blender a bit better afterwards. For now, that's good enough. And a little bit of salt. Ketchup needs to be a bit salty, but I don't want it to be too salty. So, not quite a teaspoon of pink salt. And here I think I'll need about 2 tablespoons of virgin olive oil. And final touch is about a tablespoon of salted butter. There's my spoon. The butter is almost liquid because it's hot right now. And then I'm going to mix everything together, and there's the ketchup without tomatoes, and it's a really nice red color. And now I will explain how I'm going to use it this first time. But for you, as I said, as a dip, I have some homemade bread from yesterday. It'll go really nice, probably my next meal on that bread. I'll put the bread in a frying pan just to warm it up. You could also add an avocado. This will also probably be part of the next meal. In my frying pan, leftovers from breakfast, I just heated it up a little bit with some water. There is kaniwa seed, amaranth seed, red corn kernels that were dried, and whole grain rice and lentils. So this was breakfast with some water and 2 tablespoons of virgin coconut oil, and then a little bit of salt. But first let me show you. Here is the ketchup. Lots of flavors, lots of good ingredients. Small problem that they were cooked a lot more than would have been most beneficial for your body as far as receiving the nutrients that are available with these food items. And maybe you want to see this too. So I'm going to bring the camera. I'll show you what it looks like. So right there is what I told you, a bit of water as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Tasty, healthy, whole foods. And if you make a batter, this is quite a bit. You can put it in jars or a plastic bag, put it in the freezer. If you're going to finish it, you know, within the next day or so, it might not need to go in the fridge. This one, I have a friend coming over, so we'll try and go through some of this as we sample the bread from yesterday's cooking session. And different kinds of possibilities. I was going to add spinach also into the frying pan, but I decided not to. I want my spinach probably for the next meal, minimizing the cooking process so I get more benefit from that spinach. If you maybe nachos, a lot of people like the nachos. When you put it on that tray before it goes in the oven, put some of this on it. And then if you want it to be more exciting, some bacon and some cheese on top. Could also be good for a salad, maybe not so much the leafy salad, but a bean salad or a potato salad. Lots of possibilities. And you can also add meat, chicken, beef, pork. Fish, I'm not sure about fish. Maybe, if you really like fish, this will be nice. Maybe a cold, if it's cold dish. Not cold from the fridge cold, but room temperature cold. So thanks for watching this episode, and now it's time for today's variety show. Before we get to the variety show project for today, I just want to show you my next meal. Here it is. You can see the red pepper. There's also green bean, and these big pieces are green plantains that were picked from a tree on the property 3 days ago. And here is a peanut, and there's also a different kind of peanut, and there's also sesame seed, flax seed, and at the very end I put chia seed, which help to absorb some of the excess water, and it's created a bit of a creamy liquid, which will be perfect because I have some bread cooking on the grill right now. It'll be ready in a couple minutes. So the process is very similar to what we've done, except I added about half a cup of water, which is more than normal. And then the peanuts went in after I washed them, and then I peeled and cut the plantain. Then it went in after a few minutes of the peanuts cooking, and that cooked for about 5 minutes, and then the green beans went in, washed and cut into small pieces, and then at the very end, with a few minutes left, the red pepper went in. And I forgot to mention the flax and the sesame seed went in shortly after the plantain, and then when I had turned the fire off, I added the chia seed and 1 tablespoon of butter. And I also forgot in the beginning there was about a tablespoon of sunflower seed oil. So that's my meal. Now let's walk outside to the project area for today's variety show. Here is where my bread is cooking. If you watched the previous video, you'll know that a dog ate my food, so now I put a little barrier, and it will also make more noise having the lid on top. So I don't want the dog to take my food again. So here you can see a hole in the cement, and here's another hole, and there's a few smaller holes. So it's a fairly easy cement job. Once I have my meal, I'm going to clean it out, and I'll show you what it looks like before I do the cement pour. So stay tuned. Okay, so I got the area cleaned out. This specific hole had a lot of wood pieces, which makes me believe that there may have been a tree that was cut down, and before the tree stump could deteriorate, they put this concrete pad over it. So it was a very thin layer of concrete, less than 5 centimeters, and I went down about 10 centimeters to remove a lot of that wood, and I filled it up to this much. I don't know how well you can see in the shadow. There's about 5 centimeters. I had filled up that hole with sand. Before I filled with sand, I poured some water, to make sure it was wet because I don't want this new fresh cement to dry too quickly. Then I put the sand, and then I put some more water, and I'm going to put some more water right now, because if the sand is dry, it will suck the water out of that fresh cement, causing it to dry too quickly. And I also noticed that there were a lot of empty spaces underneath. I was hoping that this existing concrete slab would provide strength for this fresh cement, but it's kind of the other way around. So I have this piece of thick steel wire that's going to go in, and also this piece of a wire mesh, which isn't very strong, but what it'll do is if there is a crack in the new concrete, it will at least hold that piece of concrete together and eliminate or minimize the chance of it chipping away. So here I have a fairly wet cement, and I'm just going to pour it in a little bit. It's got to go underneath to get some of the empty spaces. I tried to fill that in with the sand. And then I'm going to put this piece in first, and then this piece is going to go in, and I'm going to push it down to make sure it's not visible and it doesn't poke up. And then I am just going to fill in the hole enough to level it with the existing concrete slab. Pushing down that wire mesh because sometimes it wants to come back up, float back up. And that's about it. Like I said, it's an easy cement pour. What needs to happen over the next 24 hours is I will be spraying it with water just to slow down the curing process, and I will for sure keep it covered so that the sun doesn't directly hit it because it will dry it out. The sun is going to go west, which is in that direction, and it will in about 2 hours be shining on this specific area. So I'm going to cover it, and the other holes will be exactly the same. I don't think you need to see that, but what I want to say is the previous segment with my meal and the bread, they were very tasty, and if you want to know how to do it, I will put the recipe in the description box. So that's it for this segment. We'll come back tomorrow when we can see the cement all dry, and hopefully there will be no cracks. Final portion of this variety show. First of all, I want to apologize for the previous segment because my head was not in the screen for most of the segment, but the important part was being able to see what we were doing. So I'm going to show you what's going to happen now, what I was doing over the past almost 24 hours, spraying it with my water bottle just to slow down the curing process, and I covered it with cardboard, as you can see there, and there I have another piece covered with a small bucket. And what I'm going to do first is I am just going to brush away any dust or little bits of whatever that have collected, and with this tool I'm just going to scrape, flatten it out a little bit. Maybe you can hear it's a bit hollow underneath, as I explained yesterday. And then I have this old piece of sandpaper, and I'm just going to make it a bit smoother. just like that. And same with these two smaller pieces. And one more time with the brush. And then final process is just with the bottle of water, getting it wet, and the surrounding old concrete, trying to keep everything as cool as possible. It's a really hot day. And then I'll cover it again with the cardboard. Here is one that I just did. It came out nice, no cracks. And the final one is right here. I'll do the same process, just a really small hole. And I'll keep it covered. I like to keep it covered for about a week, especially if it's in the direct sunlight. And we have a decent fix-up job of this old concrete platform. So thanks for joining us in this variety show, and we'll do another one real soon, so please stay tuned.